as they look to expand that portfolio. In regards to activities in communications and marketing, we did launch notification about the youth market, which did happen this past Friday. It was a successful event as it has been. It's a collaboration with these camp programs with community services. It's a great way for our businesses to connect with the campers and teach them a little bit about entrepreneurship and get them in the doors of the businesses, and then for those students to create products, to advertise those products and then sell the products at the market. So it's a nice collaborative activity. We also did a branding survey, and on July the 18th, we met as a committee and we presented the results of that branding survey, and myself and Rudy primarily carrying on with the activities as decided by that committee. So more to come very soon. One of my pleasure activities was my partnership with Enterprise Renfrew County. I spent 4 days in the month of July listening to the starter company pitches and being part of the team that awarded those successful applicants funding dollars for the enterprise. We also hosted the Christmas in July event at the container market, which was hugely successful as well, particularly on the Saturday, where we estimate we had more than 250 attendees to the activity. As Mary has previously mentioned, we did have collaborative meetings in the later part of July with Think Design on some redevelopment of the Norman Street location. And again, noting that we are working towards the Ramble, which feels like it's far away, but it's technically not far away. We always launch it the last week of August. And so we will be launching the Ramble 2024 edition on August 29th as we partner that with the grand opening of the Comfort Station. So there will be an opportunity to gather at that location, launch the Ramble, and then do the official opening. Other than that, I think it was operations as usual. That's my report for July.
Thanks, Christine. And yeah, the container market really seems to be ramping up this year. I don't know if it's more than what was there last year, or it just seems like it's more well attended this year, but the youth market was great. Lots of enthusiastic youngsters selling their wares. The thing that I found interesting, there was about 9 youth booths, and 3 of them were staffed by sets of twins. There must be something in the water in Petawawa with all these twins that we have. But I bought some cupcakes and they were fantastic. It was a great event. Questions on the report? Deputy Mayor Satton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Christine. Christine, while I was happy to be away on holidays, it was very sad to miss the youth market. It's always so wonderful to see the enthusiasm and the finished products that these young people are bringing out to the table. So I'm glad it was well attended. My question is in regards to the CADIS group to discuss place-making assessment and downtown development. Is that just a preliminary meeting to find out what they do and how it might impact if there's anything else you could actually tell us?
Yeah, so it is just a general meeting about some opportunities that we have. One of the go-to items is downtown identification designation, and so we had the opportunity to meet with this particular firm to have some discussions. So they were quite preliminary as to what the offerings were and what some of the budget parameters might be around these kind of scope of work.
Thank you.
Further questions on the report? And I need a motion to accept the report. Moved by Councillor Driscoll, seconded by Councillor Donovan, that the Economic Development Monthly Report for July be accepted as information. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? It's carried. Next up, we have ED-11-2024 Community Improvement Plan for 3067 Petawawa Boulevard, Unit 1. Christine.
Yep, so thank you very much. This request is for roughly $3,000 under this signage grant. It is for the proposed leasee of the space, which is Doghouse Brewing Incorporated. This is an opportunity for this business to expand into a much larger space and to be able to offer additional services to the residents and the visitors of this community. The request is specifically for the fascia and pylon signage associated and existing at the business property that was also vacated by another business and that relocated. It's a first request by this particular business for support under CIP. As indicated, the signage grant allows for 50% matching funds up to $5,000, and the overall request for this project as well. Under that, there was some efficiencies in the recent review of completed CIP applications, and in a review of my budgeting, noting that I had had meetings with some businesses and had set aside some of the planned dollars for them, and not having yet received those applications. So to council, there is money available in the CIP budgeted portfolio that we could move forward with this particular project and support this business.
Questions on the report? Everybody's good with that? Now, if everybody's comfortable, then I need a motion to accept. Moved by Councillor Ruth, seconded by Councillor Driscoll, that council under the community improvement plan adopted by bylaw 1441/21 enter into the necessary funding agreement with the applicant for the following CIP financial incentive program, up to $3,000 under the signage grant. Any other questions, comments? Then I'll call for the vote. All in favor? It's carried. Next, we have ED-12-2024 Community Improvement Plan for 3191 Petawawa Boulevard. Christy?
So this is the second application for this property owner, Amy Robinson at Flourish. It's the first under our Green Initiatives grant program, and it's for a public 80 amp level 2 charging station to be installed at the property location. The owner intends to map the charging station for the public to use the facility services at her location. The expense associated with the project includes the necessary electrical work and the hub port for the charging station. The total project cost is estimated to be roughly $4,000, of which, again, under the CIP, it's a 50% matching up to $5,000. So the applicant is eligible for a $2,000 reimbursement should council wish to support this project. I will note that the owner's delivery vehicle is a hybrid, so connecting the delivery vehicle is an opportunity to support the business, but they are also incurring costs by having this particular opportunity for the general public because they are operational during the high peak electrical time frame. So anybody coming to use the electrical charging station, you know, the owner would be paying for that cost, but she feels it's a draw to her business to offer this service. So is proceeding with that opportunity. So it's up to council to see if they want to support this particular initiative.
Questions on the report? Deputy Mayor Sadler.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you to Christine. Christine, thank you for that further information, because one of my first thoughts was, you know, is this going to be used for a particular vehicle in the evening? And that's why they were wanting to have this. So it's good that it's also during the peak periods. My understanding and awareness of plug-in is that you need to be there for quite some time. It's not just a 10-minute plug-in or anything like that. So I'm supportive in principle of this for sure, but I appreciate the extra information.
Councillor Coutu.
Thank you, Christine. To the mayor, you. I am also in support of this initiative, and part of that reason is I see when you look on the Ontario map of charging stations, there's none in Petawawa that have been mapped. So I'm appreciative of the applicant putting Petawawa on that map.
Further questions? Just a question about parking spaces and how many spaces you need before you can put in a charging station. I know that the front of that business does not have a lot of parking spaces. Are there spaces in the back as well? And do we have a limit that says you need so many spaces before you can put a charging station?
No, because I don't regulate charging stations. The idea is that the applicant wants to put one in. On the weekend, when I was at the market, the IV station that is located, that's quite substantially larger than this particular use station, was in high demand. People were rolling in and rolling out, coming over to the market while it was charging, visiting the site. There was a wedding, there was lots of activities with the events that were going on surrounding the area. So there is a demand for it, and we have a lack of opportunity. So I think it's important that we continue to offer these things. There is a plan under the redevelopment at Norman Street to also put a charging station long-term or two there.
Thanks. I guess my next question is, obviously, it's going to be a free charging station. And if somebody comes and just parks there for an hour, can they go anywhere else? They don't have to spend their hour at the flower shop?
No, it's a service, and to be quite honest, they have been asking for about 3 years, finally moving the yardstick forward. It's not just a random idea. She has asked multiple times to pursue this and had looked at other funding opportunities that were available, and this is the route she's taking now.
Okay. Just one final question. I know that, I think there's two behind Kelsey's restaurant. And when they first went in, they were free, but I think now you have to pay to charge at those stations. And I'm just wondering if this is some kind of electric charging station policy that for so many years you have to provide it free, and then you have the choice to start charging people. And maybe while I'm on it, I'll ask, I think there's two at the food basics as well. Are they free, or do you have to pay for those?
I do not know about the payment of the food basics. The IV charging station was part of a grant program and it was placed there, so there could have been a term of time for the applicant, because that's a privately owned charging station. There could have been a time frame where they had to deliver the services. I know that we went through site plan for the placement of them and to guarantee them, but the costing of them or the download cost, the individuals, was not part of the conversation or necessary requirement.
Okay, I guess in a roundabout kind of way, what I'm asking is, will this charging station, if we use our CIP grant, will it always be free for all of eternity, or will there come a point where this individual can say, I don't no longer want to give this free of charge, I'm going to start charging people?
The CIP grant would not have a portion or a document associated with it that would require that. So the possibility could be that there could be a charge associated with it, but that's not the intent of the business owner at this time.
Any further questions? Okay, if you're comfortable with it, I need a motion. Moved by Councillor Coutu, seconded by Deputy Mayor Sabrin, that council, under the community improvement plan adopted by bylaw 1441/21, enter into the necessary funding agreement with the applicant for the following CIP financial incentive program, up to $2,000 under the Green Initiatives grant. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? It's carried. Just before you take on. We are getting near to the running out of money for the SIP program. So once the $90,000 is used up for the 2024 calendar year, that's it. There's no reserve fund or other fund that you can tap into to help our businesses.
So there was $90,000 budgeted. We do have a little bit of money and wiggle room as projects come in when we do the analysis of where they're at. I also had 3 projects that I earmarked dollars for, that I had discussions with the business owners. I have yet to see their documents, so I have put aside CIP dollars, should they come forward in this calendar year, that might be available to them. The reality is they need to do their coding and costing analysis for the project and to submit the application for me to proceed. Is there additional dollars? We do have money in the industrial park reserve that we could request be brought forward to CIP if there was a significant consideration for a business that we would like to support in that frame. But that would be a decision of council.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks, Christine. Okay, next we have finance. FIN-13-2024, the 2024 year-to-date financial results. Christine, 2.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council. So to preface the year-to-date results, I do want to specify that it's year-to-date, so that is inclusive of July. So with that being said, there's 7 months of results showing in the report. So from my perspective, overall, we are the healthy report card to summarize. We have had some seasonal spikes or transactions, if you will, with respect to revenue with property tax bills and certain costs that occur during the summer season, specifically as Chris alluded to in his report, all of the construction projects. So you can see that in the volume of invoices that we've processed. The volume of checks is on a quarterly basis, just to give you that comparison of apples to apples. So Q2 spike in the dollar amount, as well as the volume of vendors being paid, being reflected in that report there too as well. So nothing concerning on a year-to-date basis, but I'm happy to answer any specific questions if there are any.
Any questions on the report? Councillor Kerming.
Thank you, Mayor. Service, not so much a question, just a comment. Excellent report. I love seeing this come forward. It's great information, and hope to see it more in the future.
Thank you.
Councillor Dunn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Christine. Just one quick question, and I don't know if you will be able to answer. Under 1.3 with community service, part of our revenues looks at donations. We had a budget of 40K. We've got about 1K to date. Did we have an idea of who might be donating through those funds?
Yes, so part of the 2024 budget, the community services estimated approximately $40,000 with respect to the fundraising committee. And that those funds would be earmarked for the fundraising committee room. So we don't have that corresponding revenue to fund that expense. So it's more of a timing difference. So if those funds don't come in this year, they could come in next year. So it's not like we're going to have an expense that's not funded. It's going to be earmarked for a specific capital project. So it could be a timing difference in that regard.
Thank you.
Further questions or comments on the report? I'd just like to echo what Councillor Carmody was talking about. I really like the list of capital projects and expenditures and whether we've completed them or not completed them for the calendar year. And I really, really like the vendors paid over $100,000. Before we would look through thousands of different checks, but now we can look and see who we've been spending money on for the calendar year. It makes it really transparent for sure. Okay, any other questions or comments? Then I need a motion to accept the report. Moved by Councillor Roos, second by Deputy Mayor Sabrin, that council receives this report as information. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? It's carried. Next, we have FIN-14-2024 Town of Petawawa Group Benefit Program RFP. Christine?
Thank you. So going back almost 10 years was the last time the town did a RFP for benefit program, if you will. So dental, health, vision, so on and so forth for its employees. And just given the last few years with rising costs, staff did undertake an RFP process to kind of make sure we're getting the most bang for our buck, as well as staying competitive within the employment market within Renfrew County and within the municipality space too as well. So with that being said, there were 6 respondents, 5 kind of met the minimum criteria in terms of completeness and deadline. And we then narrowed it down to top 3, price and service kind of being the top tier criteria, but also looking at it not just in year 1, but over 5 years, making sure that they aren't just kind of coming in with the lowest bid for year 1 and then increasing the rates to recoup those losses over 5 years. So with that being said, taking into consideration the additional benefits to, as I mentioned earlier, to stay competitive within the employment landscape, the end result would be that staff are recommending to go with Medivie Blue Cross or just Blue Cross as the benefits provider to replace Manulife. So I know there's a lot of numbers and analysis, but even with the expansion or addition of additional coverage as well as a healthcare spending account, we're still saving at least $60,000 annually. So in my eyes, it's a win-win for everyone.
Okay, I find it interesting that our present carrier did not submit a RFP on time.
When they submitted.
Not on time. I think it's well overdue. It's been 10 years since we updated, and this is a great example of how we improve and innovate in terms of employee retention and attracting employees, because we know that a lot of employers close to us are improving their benefits package, and we have to keep up and offer our employees what everybody else is getting. And it looks, in this case, even above and beyond what some others are getting. Deputy Mayor Sun.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you very much for all the work and effort that went into this and the examination. When I saw the proposal, I went onto the website to just Google them. They've been in existence since 1943 and have a really good track record. What I thought was nice was as well the top 3 we're not that far apart, but most importantly, because it's part of an employee compensation package and a way to attract employees, I really like that we've increased some of the care, because I felt that the other care was quite archaic given that costs have risen, and so really nice to see. And I also think that the oh gosh, now I've lost the terminology, but looking at increasing dental for kids, and as well as life insurance. I think that's really good. So thank you again very much. I appreciate all the effort.
Further questions, comments? Councillor Carmody.
Thank you, Mayor Service, and thanks again for the report. It was very thorough and well done. The healthcare spending account seems like an interesting concept, but not familiar with it, but I understand it's more widely used now, hospitals, school boards, etc. And maybe you can just give a little word on how that works.
Sure, I'll pull up my notes I prepared for that type of a question. So a healthcare spending account is, I consider it, or the simplest way to do it is a top-up fund. So I like my massages. You might have more dependents that need dental care. How I spend my $1,000 does not need to be the same as how you spend your $1,000. So if between yourself and your spouse, you're not getting your full coverage, you can elect to use that healthcare spending account to top it up. And there will be more information forthcoming from our benefits provider in terms of what's eligible versus ineligible. So it does expand kind of the normal healthcare benefits. So it's more of it gives you that flexibility.
Thank you.
Councillor Donovan.
Thank you. And I just wanted to express my thanks for answering those questions for me. And just so council is aware, I was a bit concerned because I've maxed out on a couple of things so far this year and we're ending earlier. So I was a little worried that there might have to be some repayments of those benefits because we were stopping them. So Christine did some good research on that and we're good to go.
Further questions or comments? I guess the only question I have is, what are the next steps in terms of us passing this, in terms of when does Manulife end and the new program begin, and how that works? Will it end on the calendar year, or does it go from when we start for 12 months?
So the effective date Manulife will end September 30th. So Karen confirmed that there's kind of no additional cost from that end date. If there are open claims during that carry over that September 30th, Manulife will still be responsible for those. But therefore, October 1st is when the clock starts with Blue Cross, and it generally is on a calendar year. So things will be prorated from October to December, and the clock should restart January 1st. I've already begun in anticipation of council's endorsement, just giving the tight turnaround, getting the information that Blue Cross requires. So tomorrow morning, assuming you are all in favor, we will begin the communication process to staff in terms of that rollout and onboarding and training and transition. So from September 30th to October 1st, there's no September 31st, so it should be a clean transition.
Thanks. And just to follow up on that, so many of us who have used Manulife for many, many years are very familiar with the website and how to go on and make expense claims. Is there going to be need for a tutorial or training for us to use these?
Blue Cross has, as part of the RFP evaluation, we did meet with them prior, as part of the evaluation process, excuse me. So there will be training and materials. So they have their own app, just like Manulife does. It's very similar claims process. So there will be, we're not just going to throw you into the deep end. There will be training and materials made available to everybody.
Okay, any further questions or comments? If you're comfortable, I need a motion to approve. Moved by Councillor Donovan, seconded by Councillor Carmody, that staff be authorized to enter into negotiations with and award Medavie Blue Cross for the provision of employee benefits for the next contract renewal, starting October 1st, 2024 for a 5-year, 64-month term. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? It's carried. It's very exciting for all of the employees at Petawawa. Okay, next we have FIN-15-2024 procurement policy. Christine.
Yes, so this procurement policy before you, so I do want to acknowledge and thank those of you who pointed out some minor typos, so those will be reflected for the official bylaw approval. But I do also want to convey that this is kind of the phase 1 of our modernization of our procurement policy. Considering our last procurement policy was from 2004, this just kind of catches us up, I guess, to about, I'll call it 2020, because the next phase will be social procurement, which will encompass not only economic benefits to the local community, but also environmental and reconciliation aspects too as well, and diversity and inclusion. So this is kind of just a stepping stone, if you will, in terms of our modernization for our procurement policy. And it has been vetted by lawyers Templeman LLP, who have given their input and feedback and blessed the policy brought before you today.
Questions on the procurement policy report? Councillor Kujin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Christine, thank you sincerely. I think I wrote you that email earlier today, just thanking you for your outstanding efforts. This is amazing next level stuff. I remember when you talked about, did you want your finance director to be doing high level stuff or day to day? And we said high level, and obviously this is the result. So obviously lawyers can disagree, and I understand this has been reviewed by a lawyer. So, I had a different lawyer's opinion, and I'll give you the name. Dennis Chamberlain, so this is a municipal lawyer with Folger and Rubinoff. So there's an article published in Municipal World about this very subject, about what is the impact of specifically, so what I was emailing Christine about is that section 30, where it explicitly says there will be no preference for local businesses, this is against the law. So reviewing the Discrimination in Businesses Act, Business Practices Act, sorry. So looking at it, I'm going to echo what Dennis Chamberlain wrote in that article, that it doesn't apply to local procurement, and that's for a few reasons. The first being section 4 of the Act, when it's describing what would constitute a discriminatory business practice. That's a refusal to engage in business. So that's not what we're talking about here when we're preferring local. Further, we won't run afoul of the Canadian Free Trade Agreement if we operate with a local preference under the 30,000 cap. But the last thing too is just the context of the law. It was back in the 1970s during some embargoes and discriminatory international pressure, State of Israel, that kind of stuff. So it's not meant to impact local procurement requirements. And then the last thing I'll say, just doing a sweep of case law. So there are lots of towns who have it set up in their procurement policy that they can prefer local. And this has never been litigated because it's not under the purview of that Discriminatory Business Practices Act. And in fact, the only case that was brought before the court had to do with a minor hockey team wanting to play in Toronto and being told, no, you can't, you're outside of the area. And the court in the end refused to rule on that issue, saying that the Hockey Association wasn't conducting a business. But as an aside, during that same decision, they reviewed the fact that this is meant to apply more in terms of racist practices and not taking business from certain companies based on where they are and not doing businesses with companies that also discriminate. So that's my pitch, to have section 30 removed from this. And the reason why is because I think we understand that when we recirculate tax dollars that are given to the town, within the town, there is a local benefit. So I think we could describe a certain threshold where below which we're entitled to, we can, I believe we're not running afoul of this act. There are many other municipalities like Petawawa who have that in their act that glance to the local economy, and that's sort of looking at the velocity of money and how that creates local economic benefits in terms of employment, et cetera. So that's my pitch for section 30. Lawyers disagree all the time, but I have one other lawyer on my side, so not pulling it away. So thank you again.
Thanks for all of your research on that. Do you have a CAO going to speak on this one?
Yeah, I appreciate you bringing this forward, and actually I will ask for your notes because we will touch base with Templeman on it. And I will mention when Councillor Coutu did send her email today describing this or outlining some of it, we did speak about it. And this particular piece was not originally in the purchasing policy, and it was something that was added by our legal counselors. So our firm, Templeman's, did add this piece in. It's not something we had originally. So we'll touch base with them. I don't want to delay this though. So, and I do want to mention, when it comes to local, we do our utmost best to spend local, despite even without having it in the purchasing policy right now. It's always, if we can do it local, we'll do it local. Then we take those considerations we consider that before we make a purchase if we can. So.
Thank you for that, and Deputy Mayor Sandberg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The only piece of this that I actually referenced on my notes was the local preference. And so thank you, Councillor Coutu, for doing all that research. I just felt that it actually is in our best interest to advantage our local businesses for the very reasons that it circulates money in the economy. It allows us to grow. We approach these businesses to support minor hockey and our various things, we really need as a municipality, their taxpayer dollars to recirculate them in the community. So I'd appreciate if you could take a look, because one of my questions was going to be, have we done a scan of the 300 and some municipalities and is this consistent, or is there in fact a threshold as council can see that?
Just, yeah, so just on the point, and Councillor Coutu referred to this, there's a legislative cap that we have to deal with in regards to interprovincial trade agreements, as well as the Canadian free trade agreement, or the US Canada, what do they call it now? I forget what Trump renamed it. It was NAFTA. Anyways, we do have to take those into consideration. We don't have a choice in those matters. So when we reach a certain threshold, $30,000, we can't prefer anybody, right? And the same goes for any interprovincial trade agreement that Ontario may be involved in. Those factors have to be considered. We don't have a choice. So anything under 30,000, yes, we can include that in our decision-making matrix, and often do already, even without it enshrined in the purchasing policy. But as we progress and we talk about, Christine alluded to the next evolution, and we talked about this when we were in the early stages of developing this policy. Is our next step from here is a social procurement policy, and as Christine mentioned, that's when we start taking into account local social impact, environmental impact, and those types of things when we purchase from certain businesses or we contract services. What are those companies doing to impact those areas, and then where are they located? Bearing in mind that we have to adhere to those trade agreements that are out there. So that's our next step, right? And that has considerably more layers than what you're seeing here right now. So that will be a lot of work, and that will be another layer of work for us internally, where we will have to consider adding another staff member, because procurement at that level requires extra attention, right? So anyways, I just want to throw that out there. Sorry.
Thanks for that explanation. Councillor Donovan.
Thank you. Christine, again, thanks. Great job drafting up this policy. Looks good. And just in reference to your appendix 3, which identifies staff members and what their levels of authority will be. And it's good that Jody's here today as well. I would like to see an opportunity, or how we would move forward with training and recording of staff, as whether it's training they need to take to become eligible to have those rights of authority, or just to kind of close that loop. Okay, go.
So beyond the department heads, we've already had, or I've already led a session with staff, as well as those that could be considered eligible to have that delegated or management spending authority. And as well as it's already mentioned in the policy that department heads will annually have to designate those staff. So there will be a form that they will sign off saying, I designate so-and-so to act as in this role up to this capacity. And then the staff member as well will also be required to sign off on that form saying that they understand and acknowledge the requirements outlined in the bylaw. I've also given them a massive decision tree, so a cheat sheet to help translate this into an operational sense of things. So I think we're good, and we'll.
Further questions and comments on the report? So just a question in light of the local preference section in this report, and we talked about thresholds of $30,000. Do these other municipalities that have the local preference enshrined in their policy, just for example, let's say we were purchasing something, we put out a tender, or we look for 3 quotes, the local tender comes in at 20,000, but there's another bid that comes in at 10,000.
So the social procurement policy hasn't been scoped out as part of this policy, so I don't know. I didn't really come across any of the policies that I did review, did not have any social procurement in them. So in terms of what Councillor Coutu has brought forward, and as Scott has mentioned, that's going to require more work on our part to develop and understand and make sure that we know what we're getting into when we go down that route.
Councillor Coutu?
So if I could, Gary, for example, the Peterborough policy under 10,000, it's sort of carte blanche to prefer local suppliers because the understanding is the differences will be marginal. And then again, the added value is there. So like one of my objections to paragraph 30 is that comment that it's bad business practice to prefer. Like I couldn't disagree more. So I would really like that paragraph either edited or removed. I'll share my notes with you, Scott, so you can review for yourself.
Okay, thanks for bringing this one up, everybody, and especially Councillor Coutu. And I think it is important that we support our local businesses as much as we possibly can. And as CAO said, I think we are doing our best to do that already, but it's important to have it enshrined in policy so that everybody understands.
So then just to seek council direction then, in order to, I guess, do we want to approve the policy as presented or based on the comments regarding section 30 of the policy? Is this another?
So I can't say as amended because we don't know what the amendment is.
So what you can do is you can approve the purchasing policy subject to language provide in the purchasing policy enshrining a preference towards local, which does not infringe upon any existing agreements or trade agreements. I think that's probably the best bet. Or you can simply say, which I think is a safe thing to say, similar to the Peterborough agreement, is that anything under $10,000 or any purchase under $10,000 is to be given a local preference. And that gives you a safe haven to at least direct that. Obviously, staff will do their best when we do RFP or quote, you know, within the thresholds that are above that. We will do our best to put a focus on local if possible. But again, right, our other job here, although, you know, we want to spend local as much as possible, is also to protect the taxpayers when we do make purchases, right, or contract services. So I think you're probably safe, let's say, with an amendment to the document that puts a preference on local purchasing for any amounts under $10,000. That's a safe way to do it. Yeah. Okay.
I'm just going to throw this wording in there. So the proposed new motion would be that the proposed bylaw attached to this report be approved as presented, subject to an amendment regarding the local preference section of the policy for any amounts under $10,000. That makes sense.
We can wordsmith it.
So we'll just use that for now.
Yeah, we get the notion is that any purchases in the policy, it will be enshrined that any purchases under $10,000 will have a preference.
If it needs slight alterations later, we'll hear it before we pass it at the next council. Okay, do I need to read that again, or is everybody good? Everybody's good? So if you're comfortable, I need a motion. Moved by Deputy Mayor Sabrin, seconded by Councillor Coutu, that the proposed bylaw attached to this report be approved as presented, subject to an amendment regarding the local preference section of the policy for any amounts under $10,000 at the next meeting of council. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? It's carried. Okay, next we have FIN-16-2024 Civic Center and Kinhut Video Surveillance System. Christine, again?
Yes, I need to call an audible and ask for Colin to help me. I do need to leave. But this is another example of the report that we've coordinated with community services. with respect to security, cameras. So I want to thank
That's fine.
Colin. I do need to go, but thank you everybody for your feedback. Thank you.
Christine, just before you leave.
Yes.
I'd just like to point out that, we've, increased our capacity in an HR sense here in the corporation of the town of Petawawa. And I know we had a lot of discussions about the need for bringing on extra bodies. We've hired extra staff in community services, public works, finance, everywhere. And I think this evening, we can see what it's done. It's allowed us to innovate and do, increase the modernization of this corporation. Just wanted to make sure you heard that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so who's taking over on this one?
I'll jump in and Scott.
I'll assist.
Yeah. So, as Christine alluded to, this came up as a result of some recent vandalism that we've witnessed in and around the Volunteer Way and the container market area. We, as council is aware, we had the Pride Crosswalk vandalized a couple times now, and we've had some instances of, I believe, on the grounds of the Civic Center as well. So one thing Scott, I guess, looked at doing was trying to get some quotes to be brought before council so that we could explore this. This is not a budgeted item, but I think in Christine's report, she alludes to where the reserve funds could be utilized to do this purchase if council endorses it this evening. And she's listed in there the pros and cons, kind of, if you want, of why I think this is an important thing to do. I don't know if I want to go through everything that she's listed here. Council's already seen the mitigation and the staff responses, but more or less, if you'd like to open it up for questions that either Scott or myself could answer, we'd be happy to do so if we can. There's a list here of the financial implications, the cost of the video surveillance equipment, the number of cameras, the need for the system set up, the power install. There's no additional requirement for internet as there's enough bandwidth already there. And then the ongoing monitoring and maintenance, plus the signage that we would have to put up to notify the public of the camera systems. So the total cost is there, $30,388. And the recommendation is that council, go back to the recommendation, that council approve the expenditure of no more than $30,388 for the installation of a security camera system at the Kinhut and Civic Center, and that the expenditure be funded from the working funds reserve. Happy to try to answer any questions.
Okay, Councilor Ruth.
Thank you, Colin. No, I'm in full support of this for sure. Just two things here under evidence collection number 2. So it says alerts, some systems come with motion detection, and then under convenience with modern systems, you can access like these. Our system's going to have these. Yeah, okay.
Yep.
That's what I understand. Okay, very good. Yes. In regards to supporting it, I'm definitely all for this. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Simon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Colin. Colin, just with respect to the working funds reserve, is that the new one that we had this year, and that was for unexpected, unforeseen, or emergency types of things?
Yeah.
So while I agree with the surveillance system, I think it's a good idea. I'm not quite sure that that would have been my intent as to how we would spend this money. So my question would be, if there is no wiggle room in the community services budget or in another budget, just because I wouldn't consider that. While I consider it to be, Mary's saying no, there's no. I just read her mind. But while I would consider it to be, like I said, certainly important, I certainly wouldn't consider it an emergency. So that would be my thing. So thank you.
Councilor Driscoll.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I'm all for it. I think it's long overdue. We've had issues there for a long time. So is this going to cover the Civic Center building itself and the Kinhut? Are we going to spread out, or is it mainly around the Kinhut area?
Yeah, so through the chair. Yeah, so my understanding of the coverage and what was asked for was Kinhut, Mini-Putt, the container market, and the intersection at Volunteer Way. These are the areas that we're most concerned about. especially, we've just grown the container market. There's 2 other units in there now that we just spent money on. We've had incidents in and around the Kin Hut already in the past, garbage fires. We had an issue this past summer already with a child's bike that was tossed across the parking lot, and the individual I don't think was ever caught, or at least I haven't had a report of that. We're trying to deter that type of activity. We had a report of some transients that were holding up in the Kin Hut this past weekend, right? In and around lingering. And so, yeah, and then of course there's the missing gorilla from the mini hut that we've never had returned. But bottom line is we've had enough incidents with vandals and else. We're spending a lot of money in regards to our assets down there. We want to maintain them. And it's past time that we keep an eye on them, and so that way, if something does happen, we've got evidence and there's something the police can actually follow.
Further questions or comments? I think it is important for the protection of our assets and infrastructure, and also for the safety of our residents. I mean, if fires are getting started and there's bike throwing incidents and things like that, the safety of our residents is a primary concern as well. Just a question about the motion sensors themselves. If we do put a camera up somewhere, are the motion sensors sensitive enough that they will detect motion at the location we're trying to protect?
I would hope that they will. I think that's the intent of the motion sensor, to trigger the appropriate camera within that range. I can confirm that, but I know from previous history, anytime there's a motion camera on my personal camera at my home, it comes on automatically and picks up the 360 by whatever distance it goes. So
Yeah, not in relation to the sensors, but I did want to make a comment in regards to the budget. I will say, yeah, we've identified the working fund right now, but if by chance there are surpluses elsewhere when we go to account for this later on, then we will move that around. So the situation is fluid.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Further questions on the report? Okay, if you're comfortable, I need a motion to approve. Moved by Councillor Carmody, seconded by Councillor Roots, that council approve the expenditure of no more than $30,388 for the installation of a security system at the Kin Hut and Civic Center, and that the expenditure be funded from the working funds reserved 03.00.04.01000. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? It's carried. Okay, next we have Legislative Services Monthly Report for July 2024. Colin.
thank you, Mayor Service. Through you and the council, before you is my monthly legislative services report for July. The recommendation is that council receives the legislative services report for July's information, and I'll just briefly highlight a few key points within my report. Under animal control, for the month of July, we had one complaint received for an excessive dog barking on Violet Street, and a written warning was issued. Under stray and loose animals, we had a report of a stray dog on Noble Crescent. When the animal control officer confirmed that the tags and the vaccination of the dog was complete, he issued a verbal warning. Under other, there was a patrol for a verbal warning was issued to a resident for not cleaning up the dog excrement near the Kittyland park area. Under parking, we had 6 infraction notices issued for the month. Under watering, there was 19 property owners that were provided with exemptions for the month for watering or grass, freshly laid grass or sod. And then we had 16 written warnings issued to residents for watering on the wrong day or time, and the streets are listed in my report. Under noise, we had 1 written warning issued for noise under our Rat River Drive for a complaint of loud music. And under the transient trader, I just wanted to bring to council's attention that from August the 5th to September the 5th, Bell Canada have representatives going around for the high-speed internet, in the area. Try to get, secure some more business, I guess. And under Commissioners of Oaths, we had 37 requests for the month of July. And under marriage licenses, we had 9 licenses issued for July with a revenue received of $900. I'd be happy to take any questions the council may have.
Questions on the report? Then I need a motion to accept. Moved by Councillor Coutu, seconded by Councillor Donovan. The council receives the Legislative Services Monthly Report for July as information. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? It's carried. Next, we have LEG-08-2024 meeting schedule for September 2024. Colin.
Thank you again, Mayor Service, through you to council. Please see my staff report regarding the upcoming meeting schedule for September. As council is aware, I had a previous report done up at the end of 2023, which kind of set out what I thought was going to be our plan for our council meetings. But as we went through the summer schedule and we made the slight changes to July and August, it became apparent to Scott and myself that last year the same thing happened. Our first meeting in September, after we had a council meeting at the end of August, led to back-to-back council meetings and really not much on the agenda for the first meeting in September. So I'd like to just, I guess, recommend to council that we make the exception this year for the September the 3rd meeting to kind of follow along with our procedure bylaw and reduce our meeting schedule for the month of September by an additional week by removing the council meeting. And you'll see that we would then go from a council meeting at the end of August into a committee meeting September the 9th, followed by a council meeting on September the 16th, and then another committee meeting on September the 23rd. September the 30th, we've already confirmed that would have been a 5-week month. So we therefore wouldn't have had a meeting on that date. And if council is okay, I would suggest we recommend we leave the September 30th off. If any business comes up between now and the 30th of September that requires a special meeting to be called, we have the availability to call the meeting back on the 30th if need be. But I would recommend that we leave it the way it was approved already back in November 14th in 2023, and that we just proceed with our next scheduled meeting then October the 7th. So my recommendation is there, and if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Questions on the report? I think it's a great idea. Better use of council's time, staff time, for sure. So if you're comfortable, I need a motion. Moved by Deputy Mayor Sabrin, seconded by Councillor Coutu. The council approves the meeting schedule for September 2024 as follows. Monday, September 9th, 2024, council and committee meeting. Monday, September 16th, 2024, council meeting. And Monday, September 23rd, 2024, council and committee meeting. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? It's carried. Nothing for general matters. I need a motion to go into close. Moved by Deputy Mayor Sabrin, seconded by Councillor Carmody, that the meeting be closed pursuant to section 239, paragraph 2, paragraph D of the Municipal Act 2001, S.O.2001, C.25, to discuss labor relations or employee negotiations regarding proposed changes to job classifications and roles of specific employees. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? It's carried.